Hi guys, how are you? Good morning. We meet again so soon. I had an interesting visualization in my dream last night, and there's some interesting syncs that I'm seeing this morning, and I'm just assuming that they're not all for me. And so I wanted to come on and share them with you for like whoever they apply to. Something in my dream last night, right before I woke up, is there was some unnamed individual who walked up to me with their hands clasped and they said, "I want to show you something here." And they handed me something, and what they put into my hands was like a little baby bunny. And I was actually shocked at like how small this tiny little baby rabbit was. And then I woke up. Now, the thing is like rabbits are obviously very symbolic of fertility and abundance, like multiplication, right? They're like a really positive omen. But in the dream, like I was astounded about like how small this bunny was and like how delicate, like and careful I had to be. So that gives me the impression that like for some of you, you might have like a first encounter, or like there might be like a new idea. Part of this feels like it's clarity, like you're getting clarity around a situation, around something to do. Maybe there's like a piece of an idea or a project, something coming together. Maybe there is like a first introduction between you and someone who's going to be like important or significant in your life, right? It is like this little tiny just like droplet of helpfulness, right? Whether it's a person, a place, a thing, or an idea, it's something that is like helpful to you like for once. But the thing is that it's like it's so small and it's so new. It's sort of like when you build a fire and you have to be like really careful with the flame, right? And it's like you kind of have to hold it and you have to blow on it, but like not too hard, right? It's like you really have to like slowly and delicately like nurture that flame. That's what the energy feels like. So if you're anything like me, like when I finally get some clarity or feels like something good is finally happening, like I get really excited. And I just like try to hit like the pedal to the metal, and that does not seem to be a working strategy like in my life, and it might not be a working strategy this time either. And so again, if there is something that is sort of clearing up or like arising for you, just be mindful that like, yes, this is like the first droplet of something helpful that like you've probably seen in a hot minute. But like you have just like that little tiny bunny. It's like it's precious like china. It's like precious porcelain. Like you have to be really careful with it. You can't force it. Like you can't smother it. Like you can't blow on it too hard. You have to be like very delicate, just like very gently nurture it, right? The other thing that I'm noticing this morning is sort of like this predominance of skunks, which I know sounds funny, but I was rummaging in my car for something and I found a business card from a movers, because I'm like in this nomadic phase of my life. But the mascot on the movers business card was like this little skunk, and I thought that was like kind of funny. And I was in the house and I was walking around getting ready to just do client readings and stuff for the Patreon, whatever it may be. It smelled like skunky in the house, and I was like, I know I haven't been smoking pot in the house. Like, I know there's not a bunch of like burners in this neighborhood. Like, I haven't seen a skunk this morning, but maybe it's just like the Claire aliens coming on, because it's one of my unfortunate Claires. It's like one of those like passive like spiritual abilities that are just like, they make no sense. But I'm not seeing any skunks outside. But when I'm thinking about like a skunk, right, and you think about like the smell that skunks emit, right, that kind of brings up this idea of like protection. But the thing is that skunks are able to kind of put off like a warning signal, or they're able to protect themselves, right, by like emitting that scent, but without being aggressive. So like if you look into the symbolisms behind skunks, they have the ability to assert themselves without being like outwardly aggressive. And so that kind of says a couple things, one of which, like, you may be feeling like a lot of resistance right now, right? Like you may be feeling like a lot of that unnecessary difficulty, and it's putting you a little bit on edge. And like there is a need to be on top of like your spiritual hygiene and like your energetic boundaries, and like really being able to like assert yourself. There's sort of like this stand your ground energy of like, don't compromise on like who you are, like maintain the integrity of what it is that you want. Don't allow like the resistance and all of like this bullshit to make you feel like somehow like you have to like abandon your dreams, right? And I think that's partially why like this little drop of like this little tiny baby bunny energy is coming up, showing that like things can always improve, right? Like it's always darkest before the dawn, put it on a coffee mug, yada yada. But like that is the polarity of life, right? Like things can always improve. The universe doesn't want to help you out, that's fine. There's no luck on your side, that's fine, because we have intelligence, like we have strategy, we have formula, we have research, right? Like we have these other tools in our toolbox, right? Your ancestors are messing with you, that's fine. Call on one of the old pagan gods. Like there's always a way, you know. And this is something that I was thinking about the other day, because I was trying to get out of the neighborhood and I was trying to go to Wawa to get a breakfast burrito, and some of the like the normal way I take out of this neighborhood, it was blocked off. They were doing road work, and I was like, well, that sucks, but it's okay because there's another way out of the neighborhood, right? And so there is sort of like this collective feeling of all these different avenues like being blocked off, but like you're still able to get to your destination. Like you just might have to take like a U-turn, right? Like you might just have to go down like a side street. It's not that big of a deal. We are intelligent, like we can figure it out. Like it's a-okay. And that's part of that skunk energy, right? Of like assert yourself. If you want what you want, stand on it 10 toes. Like you don't need permission, you have to assert yourself. But it's important, just like the skunk, to assert yourself without necessarily being like outwardly aggressive, only because like it takes a lot of energy to like engage in like spiritual warfare. It takes a lot of energy to like rile yourself up, right? It takes a lot of energy. And if you are sitting there and you're trying to like nurture like this tiny little flame of like whatever it is that you got going on, if you're sitting here and you're trying to take care of like whatever bit of mental health that you have left, you know what I mean? It's like if you are sitting here and like you are trying to, if you're just sitting here and you're trying, we want you to save your energy for construction, for building, for hopefulness, for health, like for all of these other things. And so again, now is a good time where it's like a good offense is better than being on the defense. So just be mindful of your like your energetic boundaries, asserting yourself, be really aware of like the narrative that you have in your head. You might even, and this is something I've noticed with myself in the last few days, having to be like sort of disciplined about like what you're watching. I was born on a Wednesday, and Wednesday's child is just full of woe. And so I always find myself very comforted by very gloomy things. So it's like when I need like a warm blanket, I will put on something like The Handmaid's Tale. Like I will put on like the most gloomy, like depressing stuff, because it's just like comforting to me, right? I don't know why. Again, I was born on a Wednesday, but like in the last few days, like I feel a little bit like, hey, why don't you put on like a comedy? Like why don't you, which by the way, Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger is on Netflix right now, from the 90s, and I had a delightful time watching it. So, but it's just that idea, right, of like really having to like nurture and like foster like a better, more positive like mental space, right, when you're kind of like moving through. There's also something with this skunk energy as well about being mindful about like the energy that you are putting off, and being able to discern the difference between asserting yourself and setting boundaries like with the origin of the resistance versus like the destination that you're trying to go to. Like for instance, right, so like there's resistance, I'm a spiritual worker, so there's like things that pop up, right? And so like I have to be mindful of my hair is bothering me today. That I have to be mindful of like my spiritual hygiene, right? Like I have to kind of create energetic boundaries, right, with like certain energies, certain spirits, certain resistance, right? But I don't want to admit that energy to you. Like I don't want to come off like defensive or aggressive or overly assertive to you, because like you are not my problem. My problem is over here, right? And so there's sort of that idea of like bleed over effect, to be mindful of like of that skunk, that like you're not giving off like a funky energy, like giving off an attitude, like whatever it is, in the areas that like you want to see progress, right? So like again, if it's like an introduction, if it's, you know, you're meeting people, if it's a creative project, if it's work, if it's social media, like whatever it is, like don't bring your funk and your skunk and your attitude over there, because like that's the area that like you're trying to grow, you're trying to improve. Like save the funk for like the like for the energies and the areas that like deserve it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I'm trying to remember if there's something else that was coming out of here. Oh, I do have something else. And it's a little bit connected to the reading that I did yesterday about like trying to identify your tool. And this sort of is kind of like a little clicking moment that came because I was watching Charmed. They put Charmed on Amazon Prime Video, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so I was really excited to like rewatch it. And I was watching one of the episodes. I think it was, I don't know, yesterday, last night, I was watching an episode. And they were talking about like how their powers are activated, because they did like a little switcheroo, like let's switch our abilities around, and they didn't really know how to like activate each other's gifts, right? And so they had to find like the trigger to activate the gifts. And so to like vanquish a demon, they swapped the abilities, and Prue was trying to figure out how to activate it, and she realized it's hate. His magic, his power is activated by hate. So like she had to tap into that emotion. So that might be like a little bit of and it's like Piper's was love, because she switched abilities with like Leo, the light worker, whatever the hell he is, whatever the hell he is. I was like watching these episodes, and it's just a side note, I was watching these episodes and I'm like, I wonder if there's just like a generation of like millennials who like have like these charmed like Wiccan like things like buried deep into their subconscious, and it's like bleeding out in like your 30s in like the spiritual community. But regardless, right, but like her ability was like activated by love, and so that might also be like a bit of like a tool or something for you to just like think about, like what activates like your magic, your strength, your power. I know for me, with like spiritual warfare and defense being my like strongest ability, and I think like when does that get most activated? For me, it's always when I've been in a situation, or I've had people that I'm meant to be helping, they are in a situation where someone is trying to like steal power away from them, right? Like if I were to die today, it feels like the moniker they would put on my headstone is like, you don't get to tell me what to do. Like, you're not the boss of me. Like, I feel like that's where I derive so much of my power, right? And I think that comes through, like, in the readings and, like, in my rants and, like, all of that stuff. It's like, you're not the fucking boss of me. Like, you don't get to just come here and, like, bully me. Like, you don't get to just, like, attach yourself and attack yourself to this person over here. Like, I'm gonna come over there and I'm gonna extract you. I'm going to exercise you, right? It's like, I don't care that you're a sleep paralysis demon. My name is Lauren, and I'm from New Jersey, and you can't out-bitch me, and, like, you're not the boss of me. And so I think that's where, like, I derive a lot of my power from. It's just, like, the audacity of, like, you don't get to bully us. You don't get to tell us what to do. It doesn't matter who or what you are. And so, like, it's that feeling of, like, freedom, right? Like, that's where I get a lot of my power. And so it's just something for you to sit and, like, think on. Like, when do you feel really powerful? Like, in what circumstances have you felt like your spiritual abilities and like your capabilities like come online like the strongest, right? And that might be like part of the clue to like who and like what you are. Again, a lot of what was coming through yesterday in the reading, which again, it like for me it makes sense, right? It's like, so I have like Athena, like who's gonna tell Athena? Like no one's gonna tell Athena what to do, you know what I mean? Like Apollo, like no one's, like he is the god of sunlight, like you're not gonna bring darkness into my house, right? And so it makes sense, right? So again, it's just like little clues and like little pieces to think about. Very good, very good. I pulled a couple cards. I don't necessarily think it's like necessary to like go through them, because I feel like I already got out what I needed to get out. We have the Queen of Wands and we have Temptation here, right? Sort of a feeling of like, again, being careful of like the energy that you're admitting, not getting too like lost in the sauce, being very like aware. The King of Cups, the Hangman, right? Taking the time to really get like a handle on your emotions, right? So like you can't be manipulated, they can't be used against you, being able to again assert yourself and having dominance over like your own emotional regulation without being like outwardly or overly like aggressive or anything like that. And then we have the Knight of Pentacles and then the Five of Earth, right? Slowly sort of talking to because the messenger, right? Being mindful of slowly nurturing that flame, taking care of like that little baby bunny, and also being really mindful of like the mental space. And then at the top and the bottom of the deck, there's the Chariot, and then there's the Star, right? You driving through the neighborhood, getting through your destination, just maybe having to take like a little bit of a side street, right? So that is what I have for us today. A little unexpected reading, channeling for us. I am going to go and film some zodiac readings for the Patreon today, We did Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius on Tuesday, and then today is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces today. And then I have some client readings, and that's what I got going on. So thanks for hanging out with me. I love you so much. I hope you have a really good day, and I will see you later. Goodbye.